forget to like and subscribe.
And hit the notification bell
so we can go to college and get more knowledge.
Welcome back in the place to be with the CBDC Assets Group. Thank you all for being a part of the group. Continuing our moon mission, I just want to thank everybody that just subscribed. You guys mean a lot, and I'll keep them coming. In this one, Congressman Warren Davidson has some big words for Gary Gensler, saying that Gary Gensler has a history of failure at the SEC, and that we're overpaying for all the members of the board like Hester Pierce, when Gary Gensler is ultimately the chief who makes the final decision at the SEC. Congressman Davidson has a good idea of what crypto is, but it baffles me when he says things like Jay Clayton wasn't attacking specific businesses or projects that have already had a reputation. I know Davidson's on the payroll for Ripple because Ripple is the largest lobbyer in crypto, the most amount of money out of any crypto associated business. So he has to know that Jay Clayton has specifically dropped a hot rocket bomb in the lap of investors of XRP. Almost like it fell out of the sky. That's what the price did. So let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you find any contradictions in this story. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Okay guys, I got a confession. I'm editing this video, but I keep finding myself stalling out so I can watch the end of this this drop right here at the video into the water. So I'm going to give it a couple more seconds because I feel like I deserve it, and I feel like you guys need to see this peaceful landing that crypto's about to make, or XRP. So I hope you guys enjoy it.
Fortunately, some members of the media
use their platforms to push their own personal bias, and agenda to control exactly what people think. This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
Joining us now to break this down is the lawmaker himself, Ohio Congressman Warren Davidson. Welcome.
Good morning.
Nice to see you again. Okay, well, let's get right into this. This is a very bold proposal. Now, Gary Gensler is not very popular within the cryptocurrency community, but you are making a much bolder statement. You were saying he has a record of failures. Can you just outline for us in sort of the most objective way, what are these failures that you are pointing to?
Yeah, I think Gensler's failures highlight this. There's a structural problem. There's a Gary Gensler problem, but there's also a structural problem with the Securities and Exchange Commission. And really, you go back years ago, they went to a strong chairman. The original structure was the commission. And so he's front running the entire market, whether it's, Congress, the House, the Senate, Treasury, the CFTC, and it's all to try to gain jurisdiction. And instead of acknowledging that he needs to work with Congress to get clarity for digital assets, I've called it like similar to Hotel California, not the exact lyric, but you can check in with the SEC, but you can never leave. I think there's only been 4 use cases that ever cleared the SEC in the digital asset space. He's broken outside the scope of his jurisdiction with the ESG rule. He's got an unworkable market structure rule. And, if you look, the effect is people are leaving the SEC. It's a horrible place to work with Gary Gensler. And capital is leaving our market in a lot of critical areas.
So I'm wondering, do you see this purely as a Gensler issue, or is there, do you view him as having the support of the Biden administration?
He's got the support of some of the Biden administration. And frankly, there were members of Congress who are Democrats who were pretty good in the hearing, maybe a little more polite to Mr. Gensler, but, similar concerns. I think about Josh Gottheimer, Congressman Nickel, new member from Florida. Richie Torres, I thought, was great with his questions. And he highlighted a lot of the same things very thoughtfully. So I think the frustration from Republicans, we don't really have much of a pipeline with Gensler. We had a pipeline with Clayton. Clayton wasn't great on the digital asset space either. I think the other part is Congress all this really highlights that Congress actually has to move legislation. So you have a structural problem with the SEC, you have a Gensler problem, but fundamentally, if Congress could do what they did for the telecommunications sector in 1996 to create clarity that allowed the internet to flourish, it would benefit the entire market and frankly benefit regulators. I'd say the current consensus is ignorance is bliss. Most people have no clue what we're talking about. They don't understand how it works. They don't understand why it's different. They don't understand why anybody needs it. That's why, in a lot of ways, it is analogous to the internet. In the 90s, there were lots of folks that, Nobel Prize winning economists who thought that the internet would be nothing more than a fax machine. They missed it by a bit. And I think the digital asset space it has a lot of potential for. It's going to happen around the world, whether we do it and become, left behind in our market that should be leading and still is, but is developing fast rivals.
My God, other countries are moving forward with this, and we got to catch up with them. Peru's ahead of us in cocaine manufacture, in cocaine cultivation. China's ahead of us in organ harvesting, and it's time for America to catch up.
So I think we have to get clarity, and we have to do it in a way where the people that do understand it are trusted by our colleagues to create a framework. That's what happened in 1996, and that's what still hasn't happened. We've been calling for it in a bipartisan way since 2018. Yeah, I hope that the European model serves as an example of what is good and what is not good. I think the Europeans have been way ahead of us on privacy. I don't think GDPR is great, but they do have a comprehensive privacy rule that effectively has become the default even here in the United States. So one of my colleagues may be passing along a phrase, the only thing Europe really exports right now is regulation. They're dumping regulation on kind of all markets, and it's becoming the default. So a lot of companies, GDPR became their piece for privacy. California is essentially that in the United States. We need a basic privacy law, and then we need to build upon that and protect the market in a way that allows it to compete and be effective because everyone knows the rules. Mika seems like it's got the potential to do that. I think the underlying problem is that they also voted that if you move more than $1,000 of value between people, you can't do it in cash, and you can't do it without a third-party permissioned kind of approval process. So in a way, that's kind of the backdoor way to kill the DeFi space. So you can't have DeFi without the decentralized part. And permissionless peer-to-peer transactions is the thing that the Europeans seem to have rallied to try to stop. People paid a lot of attention when banks were going to start reporting on their transactions. People didn't realize that Venmo and PayPal were already reporting on $600. So the data has been collected. They just want to be able to make it admissible in court proceedings and for other legal purposes. So they're like, wow, all this stuff, and the government's looking at it. And that promoted a little bit more interest in more privacy in financial matters. So as people say, they've become accustomed to sharing information, but people are kind of creeped out by central bank digital currency, like what China's doing, linking it to a social credit score. And the real rival to that is a more freedom-oriented, permissionless system that Bitcoin kicked off. So if people read the Bitcoin white paper, bitcoin.org, they will see what really started the blockchain kind of momentum in 2009. And so why would we want to do that? Well, we have 50% of the world's invested capital in the United States. We have about 4% of the world's population. We have about 25% of the world's GDP. So we punch way above our weight in all these ways. Yet 75% of the liquidity in digital assets is offshore. FTX was offshore. And when you bring it into the United States, into our regulatory regime, investors are more protected, capital formation stronger. And the big appeal for a lot of people, they've seen this as an outlet for retail investors that largely are excluded from capital markets. That's why Robinhood took off and went viral, because it made it more accessible for retail investors. And you find a lot of the same kind of people that want access to digital assets. So I think we need to do it. And I think the first phase for regulators and for Congress is a stablecoin bill, because it truly is backed. You can't go to zero unless U.S. Treasuries go to zero. Let's hope that doesn't happen. Stablecoins will be the least of our worries if that's true. And you have some commodity-backed stablecoin possibilities. Also can't go to zero. You have at least one that's got physical custody of gold backing every token, so it's priced the same as gold. So, I think people, when they understand that, it takes away a lot of the, fear, uncertainty, and doubt in the space.
Getting back to your early comments about the chairman of the SEC and you calling for his removal, it seems as if you're looking to also restructure or at least create some sort of oversight of the SEC. How would you even do that? And as I understand it, the SEC is appointed by the president and it's approved. The chair is approved by the Senate. So I'm just wondering what authority you have to be able to make some changes there.
Well, the authority I have is to pass laws, but I'm only 1/435th of the House, and of course you have to get the Senate and the president to sign it too. So I'm not saying, hey, this is going to be implemented tomorrow, but I hope it catches on, because what it would do is you'd make it a 6-person commission instead of 5, and then if every 2 years you would age out. So every 2 years someone could be appointed, and they're appointed by a Democrat. So you'd have 3 and 3 in the commission. The commission could hire an executive director to do a lot of the work that a single leader does. But that person would only be able to act, with the approval, permission, all the authority would be vested in the commission. And in theory, the commission still matters, but the chairman has become so strong that we're wasting money on 5 commissioners and their staffs. Frankly, they don't really do anything. They write dissenting opinions that don't even have the same kinds of impact on future actions that Supreme Court dissenting opinions do. So we've essentially vested with the reforms and conduct that's been tolerated all power in the chairman and made the commission effectively powerless.
Just one last question on the SEC before you go. Sorry. You mentioned Jay Clayton, and I guess, one question that some people have is is Gary Gensler really taking a different approach than Clayton substance-wise? Or, what are the main differences here? Some would argue that it's kind of a continuation of the same policy.
The idea of come in and talk with us and we already have legal authority is a very similar approach to digital assets. But if you look at the broader scope of actions, Jay Clayton was fine on securities law. He was fine on market structure and regulation. He wasn't seizing authority that he didn't have. He was working with Congress to get some reforms for market structure. He was in dialogue, frankly, on ESG disclosure standards for people that disclose materiality. So everyone's required to disclose climate impacts that have a material impact on the financials of a company, but they're not required to do these scope 2, 3 disclosures that push everything down through the supply chain unless there's a material impact. And so those are the radical differences that Gary Gensler's had. And then lastly, in terms of enforcement actions, Clayton didn't go in a very targeted way at companies or individuals to try to disrupt the market. He was encouraging come in and work with them. He was really slow on approvals, but he wasn't actually killing companies that really had already built momentum and had investors. And so instead of protecting retail investors, he's actually caused lots of harm. If you look at the investors in BlockFi and Kraken and Coinbase, he's focused on those and done nothing to protect the investors in things like Celsius or Terra Luna.